Christ, how we're wiki, living in this dream. Got the studio vibe with a dose of green. Drunken on drugs, man, it's quite a routine. Chilling on the mic with a style so raw. Got the late night stream, you know the deal. Y'all passing out on live like Rakida's Law. Degenerate behavior is the wildest draw. Drunken Atheist Studio, party every night. Chris Halloween is living in a feeling so right. Mixing drugs and booze under layers of lights. Late night 5 minutes out of sight. I stream never drink once the cast unfold. Chris gets fucked up, stories get involved. From the base to laugh, the content's cold. Never into wildness, never do what you're told. Every podcast is a ride full of twisted cheer. You're watching Gab stream and Chris has had 1,000 beers. Psilocybin mushrooms make it crystal clear. He ain't never gonna stop, it's the show of the year. Drunken Atheist Studio, party every night. Christ, Halloween's living it, I'm feeling so right. Mixing acid with Molly under laser lights. Late night, 5 minutes out of sight. So raise your glass high to the man of the hour. Christ and crew got that unfiltered power. Fading out on live, but the rave won't sour. Degenerate and wild, they'll never cower. Drunken Atheist Studio, party every night. Christ, Halloween's living it, I'm feeling so right. Mixing drugs and blues under laser lights. Late night, 5 minutes out of sight. It's a drunken atheist coming through the scene. Christ wiki, living out his dream. Got the studio vibe with a dose of green. Drunken on drugs, man, it's quite the routine. Chilling on the mic with a style so raw. Got that late night stream, you know the deal, dog. Passing out on live like Rakida's Law. Degenerate behavior's the wildest draw. Drunken Atheist Studio, party every night. Chris Halloween's lifting it up, feeling so right. Mixing drugs and booze under laser lights. Late night vibes, man, it's out of sight. Click a stream, grab a drink, watch shit unfold. Chris gets fucked up, shaking like he told. From bits to streams, the content's cold. Diving into wildness, never do what you're told. Drunken Atheist Studio, party every night. Christ Halloween's living it up, feeling so right. Mixing drugs and booze under laser lights. Late night vibes, man, it's out of sight. Click that stream, grab a drink, watch shit unfold. Chris gets fucked up, shaking like he cold. From bits to streams, the content's cold. Diving into wildness, never do what you're told. Every broadcast is a ride full of twisted cheer. You're watching that stream and Chris has drank 100 beers. Psilocybin mushrooms make it crystal clear. He never gonna stop, how about one drunk off the motherfucking year. Drunken Atheist Studio, party every night. Chris Halloween's living it up, feeling so right. Mixing acid with Molly under laser lights. Late night vibes, man, it's out of sight. So raise your glass high to the man of the hour. Christ Halloween got the motherfucking sour. Christ Halloween got the motherfucking power. Christ Halloween gotta throw you off a tower. Living it up, do it the right. Eating all the drugs and the lights and the laser lights. Night wave vibes, man, it's out of sight. Like and subscribe if you ain't lame. Christ wiki be his name. Go to Drunken Atheist Studio to watch him play games. So fuck it, let's just do a pile of cocaine. Motherfuckers, 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 motherfuckers.
Okay, let's see if we can get through this interview tonight. I just took half a methylphenidate, so that should give me a couple hours of focus.
It's the drunken atheist coming through the scene. Cross-collar wiki living out his dream. Got that studio vibe with a dose of green. Drunken on drugs, man, it's quite the routine. Chilling on the mic with the style so raw. Got that late night stream. You know the deal, y'all. Passing out on live like Rakita's Law. Degenerate behavior, it's the wildest fall. Drunken Atheist Studio party every night. Chris Hollowickie's living it up, feeling so right. Mixing drugs and booze under laser lights. Late night vibes, man, it's out of sight. Click that screen, grab a drink, watch shit unfold. Chris gets fucked up, shaking like he cold. From bits to streams, the content's gold. Diving into wildness, never do what you're told. Every broadcast is a ride full of twisted cheer. You're watching Dab streaming, Chris has drank 100 beers. Psilocybin mushrooms, make it crystal clear. He never gonna stop, pass number one, drunk of the motherfucking year. Drunken Atheist Studio party every night. Chris Hollowickie's living it up, feeling so right. Mixing acid with Molly under laser lights.
Watch a movie like this and consider it a self-indulgent, masturbatory hot mess. I agree. Let's talk about Megalopolis in the spoiler-free review. I'm not gonna lie to you. When I saw it was starring Adam Driver and the trailer was all over the place with sci-fi craziness, I was worried because Adam Driver has a very, very interesting catalog of films. He'll do a big blockbuster film like Star Wars, but then he goes on the artistic side of things and he's raising a child that just so happens to be a marionette doll. He's diverse, is I guess what I'm saying, and so this movie felt like it was going to be closer to that Pinocchio style than something like Kylo Ren. And while I'm absolutely all for off-the-beaten-path sci-fi movies like Equilibrium, Dark City, or something that became a pop culture icon like The Matrix, this is one of those attempts that falls squarely on its face. Before I dive into this review, if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, I post movie reviews every single week on the channel, along with rants, occasional live streams, really all movies all the time. I would love to have you stick around. When Megalopolis Rex wound down and the credits started to unfold upon me, I noticed that the movie was dedicated to his wife. And immediately I started thinking, wow, Francis Ford Coppola must really hate his wife to dedicate this film to her. What's that? His wife is dead? Jesus. Okay, that's dark. Cut this out in post, Tabitha, thank you. Appreciate it. Francis Ford Coppola dedicated this movie to his wife, and I think that's admirable. I think that that's a beautiful, wonderful send-off for his late, great wife. Here's the deal. This movie has a ton of different things going on, a lot of different ideas, concepts. Coppola's playing with the idea of time here.
Okay, I'll follow you.
Too much of it, how others don't have near enough, how history repeats itself, how every great new empire rises and falls, and from the ashes we build a new, hopefully stronger, hopefully a more progressive, more prosperous one. That's going to lead us to our protagonist of the film, Adam Driver as Caesar Catalina. Caesar, along with everyone else in this film, lives in New Rome, as it's called. It's kind of like New Coke. It's, it's Rome 2.0. America's fallen. We're trying again with something fresh. Bold move to name it after a fallen previous society, but
following
civilizations, we can adapt, we can grow. And that's exactly what this Caesar wants to do. He's a visionary when vision is scary. He's in the background tinkering and toying with his new pet project, which is a magical new element that he can shape and sculpt to his desires. It can basically do everything. Cure ailments, make conveniently accessible walkways, harness the power of green energy and create massive overflowing golden leaves that you can use as a beautiful indoor space. Our boy Caesar has the ability to stop time. Pitbull style. That was a song Pitbull came out with for Men in Black 3. Pop culture, it's what we do here. What a sad thing to store in one's brain. Anyway, now as I stated earlier, this is an art film, it's abstract, so does Caesar actually have the ability to stop time? And envision things and change things to his liking, or is a lot of this more of a out-of-body emotional experience, not one that we're supposed to take at face value? It's just dreamers see things in a different viewpoint than others, than the smaller minions out there. Guys like Caesar know how to build worlds. It's all they think about. It's all they want to do is better mankind. Is it possible Francis Ford Coppola sees a bit of himself in Caesar? One would assume, but no judgment. This film is a who's who of actors. We got Giancarlo Esposito in here. We have Aubrey Plaza as a fame-seeking gold digger. John Voight's in here as Hamilton Crassus III. My boy Lawrence Fishburne's in this. Love fish. I love seeing my fish again. Chloe Fineman from SNL's randomly thrown in. We have Jason Schwartzman here, who, as a fan of Phantom Planet, one of 5 probably on the planet, it was really fun seeing him bust out the drum kit for just like 5 seconds, and I'm pretty sure he did like a beat from one of his songs in Phantom Planet. He was the drummer there. So, again, pop culture, so subscribe for that. It was really fun to see Sam Witwicky back in the films, though. Shia LaBeouf is in this. Even Stevens, man himself, back in the flesh. He gets to play a flamboyant, rich, entitled little shithead who is going to do everything he can to derail his family and grab power for himself. We have a bit of a Game of Thrones thing going on here where everybody's kind of related in some way. The top is almighty, all-powerful, all-wealthy, and there really is no middle or lower class. It's all lower class at this point. People are fighting for scraps on the streets while all these politicians and big wigs promise them greatness only to never deliver a single crumb to them. Everything I'm saying so far sounds like a fun film. Very interesting, intricate movie, but there's a lot of bullshit happening. For starters, not a scene goes by where someone's not doing an interpretive dance in the background or foreground. Like, they'll just be leaving a concert and you'll have a couple girls in a car going like, "We're in La La Land," except for we're not. Adam Driver's constantly uttering Shakespearean quotes. This is a love story. Actually, the love story is the story. Everything else is kind of just window dressing. It really all comes down to holding on to the one you love, finding love in the world, because it's everywhere, man. It's all over the place, man. You just have to grab it and create with it. It is a beautiful sentiment for sure. It's just told in a very, very insane way. Natalie Emmanuel is the love interest in this. I always considered her kind of a new age Jessica Alba. Very pretty to look at. Not really in anything good. That's what separates her from Alba. Alba had some good films. Natalie is basically poisoning the well every time she shows up in anything. I have not seen her in a single good movie, and that remains constant today. If you're one of those folks that first and foremost thinks, man, I hope this movie's not woke, I hope it doesn't have any political slant, not gonna want to watch this movie, because it absolutely has politics in mind. It not so subtly references things happening in politics today. And Francis Ford Coppola doesn't give a shit about what you think. This is for him. This movie's for him and his wife. And so in that sense, I'm like, good for him, man. He made a name for himself. He's got plenty of money to burn. Make the movie, make the art you want to, and be damned with critics like me and folks that don't want to pay to see it. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't still criticize and say this movie is an absolute dumpster fire of ideas. Narratively speaking, it's a jumbled shit show that quickly resolves in a very unsatisfying way where it felt like this movie should have been 3 or 4 hours longer to even get close to the results we got. But again, there's interesting things in the film. It has a lot to say. It just doesn't have the time to say it all. Ironic, because this film's all about time. I think the element that Caesar is toying with is called megalon, or megalob. Something like that goes off the name Megalopolis, because that's the world that Caesar wants to create. He wants to get out of this new Rome and create a utopia for all. And there's going to be pushback on that as well, where his counterparts, his relatives say a utopia is an impossibility, you'll never get there. And so yes, there were several times during this film that I thought I could just leave now. I don't need to see this anymore. It's so all over the place. But another part of me stayed to see where the hot mess went. Yes, it made me cringe up like crazy. It felt like a really old movie attempting to be a really modern sci-fi movie, if that that makes any sense. Like an indie film that has a budget of $35 million, but it's shooting for the moon, trying to make it look like this is a $400 million production. There's some really cool ass shots in this. You see them all in the trailer. Statues are coming to life, they're falling over. It's all symbolic, of course. But then there's this really gross golden hue, bloom lighting effect that's going on all over the place. None of that really looked nice to me. Coppola's playing with the reverse feature in Premiere Pro. Something you saw in 90s films like Donnie Darko, where the pool balls go in reverse. It was slick then. Now it just comes off as kind of outdated. If you watched the trailer for this and thought it was going to be kind of like The Matrix, you know, you got Lawrence Fishburne in this narrating some of the time randomly. No, it's not. And he's not anything like Morpheus, even though it kind of was presented that way. And there is zero action at all. It's not that type of film. This is a Hamlet production. This is a rise and fall of power. This idea from Coppola might actually have worked if it were, say, a 15-20 episode run on Max. But as a 2.5-hour R-rated movie, no. This is failing on all fronts. For me, if you're one of those people, and you know yourself better than I know you, that likes the kind of way out there film where everybody else in your family rolls their eyes, is like, shut this shit off after 3 minutes, and you're like, no, this is my cup of tea. This might be your cup of tea. But I think general audiences are going to hate the living hell out of this. People are going to get up and leave. I almost did. And we can just fondly remember Francis Ford Coppola for The Godfather and Apocalypse Now. And that's fine. He made 2 absolute legendary films, and now he's just doing shit for himself. Well, there you have it, my thoughts on Megalopolis. What an achievement. Let me know if you saw this movie. Please put your comments below. Like this video, subscribe, do all that crap, stick around, notification bell, whatever, and hopefully I see you next time, if I have any left. Take care.
Think this is the right thing for us to be doing, Ivana?
What do people think?
Let them talk. Ivana. It's wrong, isn't it?
But it feels so right.
Then it's a deal?
Yes, we eat our pizza the wrong way.
Crust first.
Introducing stuffed crust pizza from Pizza Hut. With a ring of cheese baked into a totally new, thinner crust, you'll want to eat it the wrong way. Crust first.
I have the last size.
Actually, you're only entitled to half.
It's $9.99.
We've been talking about at length the fast food apocalypse and the very real repercussions of a $20 to $30 minimum wage for restaurant employees that were imposed in woke cities in California, Portland, and Oregon, in Oregon, Washington, and California, I believe, at minimum. Now, of course, I have no ill will towards the employees who are just getting paid. It's not your fault. But we all knew what was going to happen. The first step would be cutbacks on hours. That happened. The next step would be automation. That has happened. Now the third step, hundreds and hundreds of locations across the country are now closing. And even worse, with inflation and everything else like that, Pizza Hut now closing over 130 locations as franchise owners are simply giving up. Absolutely brutal. Huge shout out to this video, sponsored by the way, the wellness company. We've all felt the stress of rising costs, but one of the worst offenders isn't gas or groceries, it's actually healthcare. Health insurance premiums have increased over 47% over the past 10 years, as per KFF.org. So ask yourself, is your money being optimized? Are your doctors following the traditional sick care model? At the wellness company, they take a different path. They blend holistic, naturalistic, and preventative medicine while cutting out the middlemen and the government bureaucrats. That's how they created the One Wellness Elite membership. How does it work? Well, it's $100 a month, and you get 2 free medical grade nutraceuticals per month, free prescriptions on over 800 of the most common medications, access to concierge telemedicine, which is basically how I do all my appointments now anyway, available on a moment's notice, also free, plus take an additional 15% off all supplements. There's no hidden trickery or fine print. It's just what I said. What are your expenses per month between supplements, prescriptions, and doctor visits? If it's $100 or more, you should consider One Wellness Elite membership. It's care you'll actually use every month and save money along the way. This is not insurance, it's WellCare. To learn more about this incredible membership, go to twc.health/OneWellness and use code TheQuartering to save. One Wellness is the way. Check it out today. Almost 130 Pizza Hut restaurants to shut as franchise owner simply gives up. Some of 127 pizza restaurants across 5 states in the South and the Midwest are at the risk of closing for good. The franchisee who runs them has put them up for sale after filing for bankruptcy in July due to mounting debt. It's all linked to major financial bust-up between Pizza Hut's parent company and franchisee EYM Group. Some 15 Pizza Hut locations that EYM ran in Indiana and Ohio were abruptly shuttered at the end of June as a result of the dispute, and they remain closed. EYM has now asked advisory from National Franchise Sales to help find a buyer for the further 127 locations across Illinois, Georgia, South Carolina, and Wisconsin are all on the brink of shutting over their dispute. EYM, founded by former McDonald's Mexico president Eduardo Diaz, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in July. It owes Pizza Hut $2.25 million and another $21 million to Manufacturers Bank. EYM is being sued by the chain in relation to millions of dollars of unpaid bills. In turn, EYM has blamed Pizza Hut for its financial problems. It says that sales have been badly hit by the pizza chain not modernizing its menu or to keep up with rivals like Domino's or Little Caesars. What? You put sausage and cheese on a pizza. That hasn't changed in a really long time. It's just cratering sales, right? It's just cratering sales. Overall, Pizza Hut's U.S. restaurants have seen sales slip 6% this year compared to last. Pizza Hut had set EYM staggering deadlines for payment in each state. The chain had warned it would close down restaurants in each state if debts aren't paid. The deadline for Indiana was June 12th. The 15 restaurants were shuttered 2 days later. So, if you have a Pizza Hut location near you, it's probably closing down soon, especially if you're in the Midwest. The Texas franchisee, which was founded in 2008, problems between it and Pizza Hut Go, which has 6,700 locations across the U.S., go back over a year. Not good. But then you go to this. U.S. discount retailer with 1,400 stores announces a new wave of closures as total hits 392 in bankruptcy battle. This is the end of brick and mortar. It truly is. You know, it really, really is. Big Lots has lined another batch of stores to close as it battles bankruptcy. The latest retail giant to hit financial problems this year. The 48 locations dotted all over the country, including 11 in Texas, 6 in California, come up on top of 344 closures already announced. All 392 are offering as much as 50% off bargains, prompting a rush of shoppers looking for deals. In early September, the Ohio-based chain filed for Chapter 11 after years of making big losses. It means that Big Lot plans to close a third of its 1,400 locations to cut costs as to try and woo a new potential buyer. I mean, they're not going to do that. Retail's dead. You know, retail's absolutely dead. You know, that it's just even dollar store, right? Many fed up shoppers are abandoning dollar stores and they're in the droves. You can't get anything for $1 anymore. Here in California, since they put out the $20 minimum wage, over 5,400 California jobs lost since the $20 fast food minimum wage hike, debunking Newsom's claims. This isn't corporate greed, they want to stay in business. 6 months since Gavin Newsom's $20 per hour fast food restaurant minimum wage law went into effect, California's fast food industry's job loss is now net 5,416. Since January, companies were already sounding alarms at the new 25% wage hike in Assembly Bill, the $20 fast food minimum wage, even before implementation. But just before the new BLS numbers could drop, which means people were probably already getting tired, Gavin Newsom rushed out an op-ed for Fox News claiming that, quote, this modest loss is being mischaracterized by conservatives and their enablers in the media. Pot meat kettle. The said the Globe spoke with economist Rebecca Paxton, the research director at the Employment Policies Institute. She said the wage increase was a 25% hit and can increase every year. And Newsom claims it's something businesses can simply just overcome. Paxton also told the Globe that BLS's fresh jobs data show that this is one of the worst fast food job growth rates since the Great Recession. Let me read that again. One of the worst fast food job growth rates since the Great Recession. What do you think that, I mean, I thought there would be no negative repercussions for this, right? And California's neighboring states do not have this fast food problem. Nevada and Oregon, including neighboring state, which data is available, show net fast food job gains over the year. So, over the same period. So, to just remind people, it is an absolute, we knew this would happen ahead of time, right? We knew this would happen, but now the data proves it. California institutes a $20 minimum wage on fast food jobs. 5,400 people are fired, and hundreds of locations get closed in that state on top of that. States right next door gain jobs. I wonder if it's people who lost their job and then went to a different state. You know? Backing up a bit, less than 3 months after Gavin Newsom's $20 per hour fast food restaurant minimum wage went into effect, a survey reported that 74% of California fast food restaurant owners says there's an increase in the likelihood that they will shut their entire restaurants down, an increasingly real concept as restaurants continue to shutter. Recent reporting from Business Insider shows it's already happening, with customer foot traffic around California's fast food restaurants considerably down. With so much statewide and national press critical of Gavin Newsom's devastating wage hike in fast food, the administration had a trusty media friend run cover for them. The LA Times obediently authored a column claiming the fast food industry claims fast food minimum wage law is costing jobs. Its numbers are fake. No, the numbers aren't fake. The Newsom administration manipulated the data, gaslighting everyone about job losses and business closures, claiming there were job increases, in LA Times mixed up data from 2023 to show fast food employment is up. The wage hike didn't even take place until April 1st, 2024. Some stores, of course, outright closed. Most notable, however, has been the massive amount of layoffs. Already over 1,200 Pizza Hut drivers were fired, with drivers to be replaced by services like DoorDash and Uber Eats. In the coming months, many other chains also currently looking into doing the same thing for their drivers. In June, Globe reported that Rubio's Coastal Grill, the Carlsbad-based Mexican food restaurant chain with over 200 stores nationwide, announced that 50 of their stores in California would also close. According to Rubio's, a total of 48 quote under. I mean, this is 98% of people say. What's wild about this is just, again, California Restaurant Group asks Fast Food Council to slow down plans to raise the $20 minimum wage again. I mean, a $20 minimum wage on top of this is absolutely bonkers. Or, I mean, another raise on top of that. All this is going to do is force all these people into, higher risk Uber Eats and food delivery job services. This doesn't provide them any additional security whatsoever, and it's just a complete disaster. And with Pizza Hut, hundreds of Pizza Huts down, hundreds of Domino's down, where are all these people working, right? Of course they lost their job. The minimum wage increase has spectacularly backfired. If only everybody didn't know this was going to happen. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on it.
Piece of fucking shit.
Vince McMahon built an empire that changed the face of professional wrestling, but his journey has been far from simple. The Netflix documentary Mr. McMahon offers a glimpse into his world, but fails to expose the controversies that have followed him for decades. So do you think it is possible for us to really understand McMahon's success without acknowledging the sacrifices and scandals that came with it? Let's take a closer look at the untold story behind McMahon's rise to power. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
On trial for steroids.
90% of the wrestlers are on steroids.
Another dead wrestler.
The scandal that rocked WWE, McMahon's steroid trial. The 1994 steroid trial was a major turning point for Vince McMahon and WWE, then known as WWF. McMahon was accused of giving anabolic steroids to wrestlers, with the help of Dr. George Zahorian, a ringside physician who worked with WWF. Steroid use was widespread in WWF during this time because McMahon was building a brand of sports entertainment, and wrestlers needed these superhuman bodies to fit the image of McMahon's vision. Things took a serious turn when Zahorian was arrested for illegal steroid distribution, and it was discovered he had supplied drugs to 37 WWF wrestlers, and McMahon was accused of overseeing this. The trial became a major media event, especially because Hulk Hogan testified. Hogan admitted he had used steroids, but claimed that McMahon never pressured him to do so. But then another wrestler, Kevin Nails Wachholtz, accused McMahon of pushing him to take steroids, but his testimony was easily discredited by McMahon's legal team, who portrayed him as a bitter ex-employee. Although McMahon was found not guilty, the trial had a big impact on his reputation and the wrestling industry, but the Netflix documentary barely even mentions this trial, leaving out important details that could help explain how this era shaped McMahon's legacy. Vince McMahon's long history of sexual misconduct claims. One of the biggest cases involves Janelle Grant, a former WWE employee who, in 2024, filed a lawsuit accusing McMahon of sexually exploiting and trafficking her to other men. She claimed she was raped by McMahon and another WWE executive and endured years of abuse. But what is so sad is that Grant's case is just one of many. In 2022, it was revealed that he had paid millions in hush money to multiple women who accused him of misconduct. This scandal got so out of hand that McMahon was forced to step down as WWE's CEO, but this was just temporary. He returned to his position in 2023. Then Rita Chatterton, WWE's first female referee, accused McMahon of raping her in 1986. Chatterton's story resurfaced during the 2022 investigations, and McMahon eventually settled her case in early 2023. Additionally, former WWE star Ashley Massaro also made some serious claims against Vince McMahon. In a statement, Massaro said McMahon sexually harassed her and other female wrestlers. She described how, after her Playboy cover was released, McMahon tried to get her alone in his hotel room, calling her non-stop. When she refused, Massaro claimed McMahon purposely wrote bad scripts for her to ruin her career. She also shared a story about being raped by someone pretending to be a U.S. Army doctor during a WWE tour in Kuwait. Despite knowing about it, McMahon and other WWE officials allegedly told her not to talk about it, which is just so messed up, isn't it? Against Vince McMahon. In a statement, Massaro said McMahon sexually harassed her and other female wrestlers. She described how, after her Playboy cover was released, McMahon tried to get her alone in his hotel room, calling her non-stop. When she refused, Massaro claimed McMahon purposely wrote bad scripts for her to ruin her career. She also shared a story about being raped by someone pretending to be a U.S. Army doctor during a WWE tour in Kuwait. Despite knowing about it, McMahon and other WWE officials allegedly told her not to talk about it, which is just so messed up, isn't it? The untold struggles. WWE wrestlers speak out on toxic treatment. Following the recent lawsuit against Vince McMahon, several former WWE wrestlers have spoken out about the toxic culture they experienced while working under him. Wrestlers like Maria Kanellis shared that many people in WWE had heard rumors or experienced troubling behavior for years. But when anyone tried to speak up, they were often dismissed or called bitter or crazy. One major issue was that WWE wrestlers were not part of a union, meaning they had little power or protection against unfair treatment. Wrestlers had to sign strict contracts and, despite the physical toll of wrestling, lacked proper health care and support. Many feared punishments if they raised concerns, allowing mistreatment to continue unchecked. Tori Wilson, another former wrestler, shared how she felt pressured into taking part in sexualized storylines, which made her uncomfortable. Paul London, whose girlfriend had filed sexual harassment claims against WWE, said the recent lawsuit against McMahon is just the beginning, and there are likely many more untold stories of mistreatment. Instead of highlighting these struggles, the Netflix documentary focuses more on McMahon's business success, but now what he did to people to achieve this so-called success. Tragedy in the ring, the shocking deaths of Owen Hart and Chris Benoit. Owen Hart and Chris Benoit's deaths under Vince McMahon's watch shocked the wrestling world. During the 1999 Over the Edge pay-per-view, when Owen Hart, performing as the Blue Blazer, fell to his death after a harness malfunction. Hart was set to descend from the rafters of the Kemper Arena, but a safety failure caused him to plunge 78 feet, killing him instantly. I mean, you can see the sheer lack of empathy and concern for Hart's life. Then the Chris Benoit case in 2007 further fueled criticism. Benoit, once a respected WWE star, killed his wife and son before taking his own life, and the incident shook the wrestling community to its core. Investigations pointed to a combination of steroid use and CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a brain condition caused by repeated head trauma, and Benoit was known for using dangerous moves like headbutts, which likely caused severe brain damage. McMahon talked about this in the Netflix documentary, but said there was no link between the head injuries from wrestling and what happened later, and he did not think the CTE or steroids played a part in it either. This made a lot of people angry, because I think it goes without saying how repeated head trauma can affect anyone's brain and behavior. Questionable business practices exposed. Vince McMahon's questionable business practices have been revealed through various stories from former WWE stars. Did you know that one time he was backstage at an event with his son, Shane McMahon, and they were having an argument about a creative idea? Vince did not just disagree with his son, but he literally handed him a knife and asked Shane to stab him if he really wanted to get his way. In WWE's early days, Vince also made his wrestlers work almost every single day of the year, but this actually blew up in his face because it led many wrestlers to leave WWE and joined WCW instead, which offered better pay and more time off, and it ended up hurting the company as WCW briefly overtook WWE during the Monday Night Wars. Vince was also known for booking wrestlers to lose in their hometowns. This embarrassed them in front of their families and friends. Wrestlers like Bret Hart and Matt Hardy were humiliated in front of their home crowds, all because Vince believed it would generate excitement and make more money. One of the craziest stories came from Seth Rollins. He said that in 2014, during a taped SmackDown match with Kofi Kingston, he let Kofi get some moves in out of respect, but this made Vince furious. Vince pulled Rollins aside and yelled that if he wanted to be a top star, the match needed to be more one-sided. McMahon was so upset that he made them redo the match in front of the live crowd, which honestly defeated the purpose of the match and left Rollins feeling embarrassed and frustrated. Conclusion. The Netflix documentary on Vince McMahon highlights his success in building WWE, but does not fully explore the darker parts of his career. For fans hoping to see an honest look at the man behind the empire, the film raises important questions. How much of his success came at the cost of others? And how different would his legacy be if those truths were fully explored? It feels like there's still a story left to tell, one that is not as polished, but perhaps more real. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.
The Poogalloons have started a fire. They've started a fire now. North Korean rubbish balloon causes fire in Seoul. A rubbish balloon from North Korea landed on a Seoul building rooftop and caused a fire, a local fire department has said. Among thousands of balloons Pyongyang has sent southward this year, sparking a tit-for-tat propaganda campaign. At around 9:04 PM, I'm reading the Irish media just now. It's just nice to stay abreast. On Sunday, a fire broke out on the rooftop of a 4-storey commercial building in the Western District of Seoul, Seoul's Gangseo Fire Station said in a statement. The fire was extinguished in 18 minutes and 15 fire trucks and 56 personnel were deployed, said the fire department, adding there were no casualties, so that's good. Military and police authorities collected the balloon, which was being investigated. Pyongyang launched about 120 rubbish-filled balloons towards the border last night, following 50 balloons that were sent on Saturday, South Korea's military said. Around 40 of the balloons had already landed in the south, mainly in northern Gyeonggi province and the capital, Seoul, the Joint Chiefs of Staff said. The bags attached to those balloons contained mostly paper and plastic waste, the JCS said, adding that they pose no safety risk to the public. North Korea has sent more than 5,000 rubbish-filled balloons southwards since May, saying that they are retaliation for propaganda balloons launched by South Korean activists. In response, Seoul has suspended a tension-reducing military deal with Pyongyang and restarted some propaganda broadcasts from loudspeakers along the border. Timer devices on balloons caused fires earlier this month, with one near an airport and another at a storage unit. Some North Korean rubbish balloons have thermal timers that could potentially cause fires if they don't separate properly when the heating wire is activated, which acts to detach the balloon from its load, the JCS spokesperson Lee Chang-hyun told reporters. I'm sure maybe that is the original intention, but I think if they're like, yeah, if it causes a fire, so they probably really don't care. We have seen it being described as a timer explosion, but we would like to explain again that the method is where a thermal timer heats the balloon's material, causing it to tear apart in mid-air, he added. Lee Chang-hyun also said shooting down the balloons in the air increases the risk of falling debris or hazardous materials. So for now, the safest approach is considered to be quickly collecting them after they fall naturally. North Korea has data to predict where the balloon will land after flying for a certain number of hours and then detonate the device mid-air to where they intend to drop it, Yang Uk, a research fellow at the Asan Institute for Policy Studies, said. Although no one has been hurt and there has been no damage, the balloon fires can lead to worse when the season becomes dry, Yang added. So basically, they're now putting in like sort of thermal timers into the balloons. I believe they're saying, oh, it's to make sure that it detaches and the rubbish falls down on South Korea because they're just going to try and use South Korea to dump the rubbish. But I think even if it did like land on a building and cause a fire, maybe that's kind of intentional. Maybe they're letting it go, going, I hope that burns the house down. Like maybe they are, I don't know. But if anyone dies because of it, then this becomes a lot less funny. It was a lot funnier when they were sending like shitty nappies and stuff like that over the borders, but I don't like the turn this is taken. Because what if that lands on a house and it sets the house on fire and there's children inside and stuff like that? So I don't want the thermal stuff to happen anymore. I like how funny this story is, so please don't put the thermal timers in it, because then there's a risk of it turning tragic.
One thing I'll say about Rings of Power is that it keeps finding new and creative ways to destroy my faith in modern entertainment, and I think the best example of this is the latest episode, Doomed to Die, which is kind of an ironic title when you think about it, because it pretty much describes the show's chances of success, but whatever. On the face of it, this episode should be the one time when Rings of Power finally gets to excel. Yeah, maybe it's not so hot when it comes to dialogue, character development, story progression, spatial awareness, world building, logic, reason, acting, costumes, set design, but surely to goodness with all the money they have at their disposal, they can at least take a couple of CGI armies and bash them against each other in something that vaguely resembles an exciting battle. You'd think so, wouldn't you? Instead, what we got was a confused, boring, tedious, laughably incoherent mess of disconnected events and desperate member berries that went on forever, had no clear sense of progression or overall stakes, and generally squandered what should have been the show's greatest opportunity to shine. Honestly, how can you fuck up something as simple as this? Anyway, because I'm all about making the world a better place, one drunken rant at a time, I thought it might be interesting to compare and contrast this on-screen battle with one that actually worked well. In this case, the Battle of Helm's Deep from the Two Towers. Why exactly did I choose that one? Well, one, because it's fucking awesome, but two, because the general setup and disposition of both battles is broadly similar. In both cases, a limited number of defenders have to hold a fortified position against a superior orc army throughout the night until reinforcements can arrive the following morning to relieve them. The difference though is in the execution, and this is where one becomes a tense, action-packed and extremely well-paced conflict that brings the dramatic tension to a perfect climax.
Yes!
Before ending with a big emotional payoff, and the other one becomes doomed to die. So what exactly makes Helm's Deep such a good battle? Well, in my humble opinion, in order for a battle to work effectively, it needs to deliver three main elements. 1. A logical battlefield that the audience can easily track. 2. Understandable objectives for both sides. 3. A clear, logical sense of progression. Sounds easy, right? Well, let's run this up against Helm's Deep and see how it measures up. First of all, we need a logical battlefield to work on. The fortress of Helm's Deep is located at the end of a steep valley, meaning there's only one way for an enemy to assault the place, and the two towers make sure that we get a good view of the fortifications well in advance, so that we know the layout of the place pretty effectively. There's the curtain wall with an open space behind it where the bulk of the defenders can assemble, the main fortress with its gate and approach ramp where they can fall back to if the walls get breached, and finally the citadel where they can make their last stand if the shit really hits the fan. It's logical, easy to follow and map out in your head, and has obvious layers of defense that anyone can understand. Then there's part 2, objectives. Well, again, this one's simple enough. The defenders know that Gandalf has lined up reinforcements to relieve the siege and promises to return by dawn the following day. So their objective is basically just to hold out until he gets there. The orcs, on the other hand, have an equally simple objective. Break into the fortress and kill everything that they see. Every action that they take is oriented towards that goal. Lastly, there's number 3, the idea of progression. A good on-screen battle should have an ebb and flow to it. Throughout the battle, the audience should have a good sense of which side is winning and losing, which army is in a stronger position, and what each little victory or loss means to the overall battlefields. Helm's Deep absolutely excels at this, because we know right from the start that the defenders are badly outnumbered, and their only real hope is the fortifications that stand between them and the massive orc army bearing down on them. As a result, the defensive walls must be held at all costs, and from the orc point of view, they have to be overcome at all costs. So the orcs assault the walls, try to scale them with ladders. The defenders hold them off for a while before the orcs breach the wall with explosives. Holy shit, that's something that nobody accounted for. Now the orcs are inside the walls. The defenders counterattack them and drive them back at great cost, but there's too many to hold off for long, forcing them to fall back inside the fortress. Now their defensive power has been weakened because most of their archers are dead. Now the orcs assault the fortress by ramming the main gate, and again they're pushed back temporarily, but they can't be stopped for long. Now the handful of defenders that remain are holed up inside the hall. It's almost dawn, but they're out of time and resources, and rather than wait for the end to come, they instead decide to make a suicidal charge into the enemy, hoping to buy some time for the women and children behind them to escape. And at the last moment, when all seems lost, Gandalf finally arrives to save the goddamn day. There's a logical, easy-to-follow progression to the battle. Both sides make smart and in some cases pretty inventive actions to pursue their goals. Because you know the layout of the battlefield, the objectives of both sides and the relative strength of the two armies, it becomes easy to follow. You know where everyone is at any given time, and you can feel the growing desperation as the defenders are pushed back and back. It's great stuff that accomplishes everything a battle like this needs to, and for those reasons, it becomes an absolutely gripping spectacle. Nice one, Peter Jackson. Now let's consider the Battle of Eregion in the Rings of Power. First up, what's the layout of the battlefield? Well, straight away we're getting into kind of murky territory because the full geography of the area is never really depicted. As best I can tell, you've got the city with a defensive wall and a river that surrounds it on two sides, but then there's mountains and forests and stuff behind it. Are there walls there too? I don't know. Could the orcs theoretically assault from that direction? Maybe. We'll never really know. The orc army itself is positioned roughly in the forest on the other side of the river, which creates a visual problem for the viewer because there's no sense of the size and disposition of the opposing forces. Are there lots of orcs there? I guess so, because they'd have to know they're assaulting a major city, but we never get to see the full army out in the open, so I've got no real idea. I don't know how much of a threat
First movie going experience is me. I remember, and I would have been 3 at the time, I remember going to the movie theater and seeing The Land Before Time. Like, I think it was very,
The upshot is that compared to the small group of old men and boys,
I don't remember a lot of things from when I'm 3. Let's just say that. But I remember first time going to a theater. I remember sitting in the theater. I remember fucking Tree Stars. I remember the T-Rex. That movie
which should be an absolute disaster for them. But instead,
That movie was
becomes just
awesome.
another component of an increasingly confused battle when they get stopped in their tracks by the appearance of Galadriel as a hostage. And this is where
And
we
you
get
know,
into
my memory is kind of
territory.
skewed
So let's
because
look at
obviously I
part
probably
two,
watched
shall
that.
we?
I don't think we ever owned it on
Understanding the
video,
objectives
but
of both
I'd
sides.
watched
So the
it
basic setup here
a
is
few
that Sauron
times
has infiltrated
after
the
seeing it
Region
in
so that
theaters.
he can forge the rings of
I've
fire.
probably
The orcs
seen
are
some of
here
those
to
shitty
fight
musical
Sauron.
sequels more times than the
Kill the
original
orcs
though,
and
because I had a
then
younger
kill
brother and they made
Sauron
like
as well.
20 different Land Before Time movies that all sucked.
But because the orcs have Galadriel as a prisoner, he can't attack them directly or they'll just execute her. But then they have a conference, because that's totally something that you can do in the middle of a siege. And as best as I can tell, the bargaining session ends with Elrond walking out and saying, well, we're just going to go ahead and kill you anyway, so you better watch out. Which begs the question, why allow him to leave it all then? You might as well just kill the guy right there and eliminate an important enemy commander. Also, if Galadriel is clearly no use as a hostage, then you should probably just execute her too, instead of leaving her alone and lightly guarded so that she can escape later and fuck up your plans. Not to mention the fact that it's Sauron who's the biggest threat to both sides. I mean, if everyone...
Andor is fantastic, and the star looks like
then
me.
why not work together to take him out and then sort the rest out later? The objectives of both sides here are as muddied and confused as the rest of the battle, and believe me, it only gets worse from here. Which brings me on to part 3, a logical sense of progression. As I said earlier, the objective for Adar and the orcs is to fight their way inside Eregion so they can find Sauron and kill the shit out of him. To do that, they have to cross the river, breach the walls, and fight their way through the city until they can get to him. And this is where I pretty much lost what's left of my sanity, because in order to cross the river, they decide to bombard the mountains nearby with trebuchets, which causes them to collapse and block the river, instantly turning it into an open field that they can easily move infantry and siege engines across. Mountains do not work like this. It would be like me punching an oak tree with my bare fists and expecting it to collapse. Rivers don't work like this either. Even if the mountain did somehow collapse into it, where the fuck do you think all the water would go then? Would it just like give up and go home? Lastly, riverbeds don't work like this either. Even if all that other stupid shit actually happened, the riverbed would be an impassable quagmire of deep mud and silt for weeks if not months afterwards. There's no way you'd be able to get infantry across it, never mind gigantic siege engines. Anyway, whatever, let's just go with it so we can get through this. So the orcs cross the magical bullshit river, and now their job is to breach the walls, which they do with the world's least practical siege engine. I don't even really know how to explain this thing, because I've never seen anything remotely like it. The best I can say is that it somehow hooks into the walls and yanks bits out of it. It takes forever to set up, it can only be used like once an hour, and it's made mostly of wood and is completely exposed to defensive fire from above. I mean, literally a couple of pots of burning oil and this thing is toast. But conveniently enough, nobody tries that so that the rest of the plot can happen. While all this stupid shit's going on, Elrond's army seems to be fighting the orcs in woodland on horseback. Now, I'm no military expert, but even I can tell you that the one place you absolutely don't want to send a massed cavalry force is into dense woodland where they can't charge effectively, can get bogged down in rough terrain and easily ambushed, and the horses and riders can easily collide with trees and low branches. It completely negates the purpose of even using cavalry. I mean, damn man, I can only imagine how Shad must be losing his mind over stuff like this. And because the defenders of the city can't easily see them, it never occurs to them to send out an infantry assault to support them, which in theory could have caught the orc army between two powerful forces and absolutely crushed them. As a viewer, it also means that I'm never entirely sure where they are compared to the front lines of the siege, how many there are, or whether they're even making much of an impact on the overall battle. Gilgalad is apparently there too, but I don't know what he's doing most of the time, or even who's in overall command of the elf army. The battle, which was already on shaky ground from a narrative point of view, has basically devolved into a bunch of smaller actions, none of which have any connection to each other or contribute to an overall understanding of what's going on. Then there's the ridiculous stuff that either has setup with no payoff or tries to fake a payoff with no setup. Like at one point, Adar sends in a big troll thing to fuck up the elf army, knowing it's going to cause a lot of collateral damage, and it's built up as this big imposing threat, but then
Yo, it's the Drunken Atheist coming through the scene. Christ, how wiki, living in this dream. Got the studio vibe with a dose of green. Talking on drugs, man, it's quite a routine. Chilling on the mic with a style so raw. Got the late night stream, you know the deal. Y'all passing out on live like Rakida's Law. Degenerate behavior, it's the wildest draw. Drunken Atheist Studio, party every night. Chris Halloween is living in a feeling so right. Mix the drugs and booze on the layers of lights. Late night, 5 minutes out of sight. Stream never drink, but the gas on full. Chris gets fucked up, stories getting blown. From the base of labs, the content's low. Never in the wildness, never do what you're told. Every podcast is a ride full of twisted cheer. You're watching Gab stream and Chris has had 1,000 beers. Psilocybin mushrooms make it crystal clear. He ain't never gonna stop, it's the show of the year. Drunken Atheist Studio, party every night. Christ, Halloween's living it up, feeling so right. Mixing acid with Molly under laser lights. Late night, 5 minutes out of sight. So raise your glass high to the man of the hour. Christ and crew got that unfiltered power. Fading out on live, but the rave won't sour. Degenerate and wild, they'll never cower. Drunken Atheist Studio, party every night. Christ, Halloween is living it up, feeling so right. Mixing drugs and blues under laser lights. Late night, 5 minutes out of sight. It's a drunken atheist coming through the scene. Christ Wiki, living out his dream. Got the studio vibe with a dose of green. Drunken on drums, man, it's quite the routine. Chilling on the mic with a style so raw. Got that late night stream. You know the deal, y'all. Passing out on live with Rakida's Law. Degenerate behavior's the wildest draw. Drunken Atheist Studio, party every night. Chris Wiki's living it up, feeling so right. Mix the drugs and booze and the laser lights. Late night vibes, man, it's out of sight. Click a stream, grab a drink, watch shit unfold. Chris gets fucked up, shaking like he cold. From bits to streams, the content's gold. Diving into wildness, never do what you're told.
It's cold in here, but I don't want to shut the... Never have windows open in here. I'm cold. Shaking like it's cold.
Party doesn't like. It's madness. We're gonna get into it, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticeword.com/join.
Oh, give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Good evening, I'm Byron Pitts, New York. We have breaking news this evening. New York Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury, according to sources familiar with the matter.
But like I said in the open, Eric Adams has been indicted on federal charges, making him the first mayor sitting in the history of the city of New York to be indicted on these criminal charges. Now, he says that he did nothing wrong. He actually had a pre-recorded video that was set to go out if he was going to be charged, testifying to that fact. But in reality, in actuality, when you look into the indictment, it doesn't look very good for Mr. Eric Adams, if I'm being perfectly honest.
My fellow New Yorkers, it is now my belief that the federal government intends to charge me with crimes. If so, these charges will be entirely false, based on lies. But they would not be surprising. I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target. And a target I became. For months, leaks and rumors have been aimed at me in an attempt to undermine my credibility and paint me as guilty. Just this past week, they searched the home of our new police commissioner, looking for documents from 20 years ago, just 1 week after he joined my administration.
Now look, a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, are running defense for Adams right now in this moment. There's a lot of tinfoil hat wearers that are saying, you know, he's only really being investigated, he's only really being charged due to his stance on illegal migrants, due to the fact that he's called out the Biden administration. But the fact of the matter is, Eric Adams doesn't have a coherent position on illegal migrants. He's often given them more funding, and I think New York City is paying more for the migrants than other cities around the country, and he's used his own donors as the mechanism in order to deliver that aid to the illegal migrants. So when he says he's going after the Democrats, it kind of rings hollow when you actually understand the policy.
When the federal government did nothing as its broken immigration policies overloaded our shelter system with no relief, I put the people of New York before party and politics.
On top of that, while Adams has called out the Biden administration for this border problem and for the lack of aid, he's also accused Texas governor of evil white racism because he says Greg Abbott is sending the migrants only to cities with black mayors, and that, of course, is indicative of evil white racism, and it has nothing to do with the fact that New York City declared itself a sanctuary city, and New York State declared itself a sanctuary state, and all these border states are tired of dealing with these illegal migrants, so they said, you know what, you want them, you take them, and now they're regretting what they asked for, even if Adams himself did not ask for these migrants specifically. That being said, my position on Eric Adams is pretty much unchanged. During the Democratic primary, when you had all manner of radicals running to the left of Bill de Blasio and Andrew Yang offering people universal basic income, he was the best on the most important issue, which of course was crime and criminal justice. And I knew Adams was going to win running on that platform because unlike other blue cities in this country, New York City has shown that they would elect a tough-on-crime Republican as mayor, which is something that you don't see in Chicago or Philadelphia or any of these cities that end up tossing their woke, crazy mayor and replacing them with an even woker, even crazier mayor. But I also always gave the caveat that Mayor Eric Adams was a Brooklyn borough president, and those positions are rife with corruption. Now again, this is not a situation where you have somebody running for New York State Attorney General like Letitia James, who's running on bankrupting you, and then they end up suing you in an attempt to bankrupt you using obscure interpretations of law.
And right now, what we need is someone who understands that you should not be afraid, not be fearful of Donald Trump. We should take him down. We should sue him all the way to bankruptcy. We should investigate his business interests. We should investigate his business holdings. We should investigate whether or not why he was once in debt and now in a position to purchase all of this property. We can do that because I've been trained to do that, and I will do that at the same time knowing the Office of Attorney General and its powers and its responsibilities and its duties. My name is Letitia James, and I plan on being the next Attorney General of the state of New York. God bless you and thank you.
The Adams situation is different. Though unsurprisingly, these allegations, or as the super mayor would call them, alizations,
excuse me.
And unsurprisingly, the point of contact identified in the indictment between the Turkish government and Eric Adams dates all the way back to when he was Brooklyn borough president. But without further ado, let's get into the actual indictment. Let's see what is being alleged so you can understand it, and we'll start with the campaign finance issues because there are many. Now, there's two main components of this campaign finance issue, and although they are related, they're actually different acts of criminality, and that's why they need to be highlighted a bit separately. So first and foremost, there is the issue of the straw donors, and what a straw donor typically is when I, let's say as a person, contribute the maximum to a candidate, and I want to give that candidate more because I really want them to win election. However, since I've reached my max, I can no longer legally do so. But instead, the crazy idea that I concoct in my brain is that I'm going to have a friend or relative of mine contribute the maximum in terms of their campaign contribution under their name, and I will reimburse them later.
Please come and join me inside my house as I show you how simple items such as bamboo paper can be an indicator of marijuana use, or a cut of straw can be an indicator of using cocaine. I will show you how to search a room to ensure that you remove illegal handguns and other contraband from your home.
Now, Eric Adams is actually accused of doing this on an absolutely grand scale, and this, of course, involves money from people that are connected to the Turkish government, from Turkish businesses, from people living in the United States of America that are not American citizens and thus do not qualify to donate to a mayoral campaign. And on top of that, he had them donate actually smaller amounts than you would normally see.
133.35.
Has this public financing law that will essentially 8 times
Doesn't
any
like fan
donation,
fiction.
$250 or less, which is how Eric Adams was able to get basically $10 million, according to this indictment.
Hope we don't fuck up the time codes this time.
Now, what I love about this particular scheme is the fact that this public financing law is meant to actually reduce corruption and get mayoral candidates to go out there and solicit donations from more regular, ordinary people, and that's why you have the amplification of this money. Now, of course, you get up to $2,000, meaning the 8 times multiplier is more effective when you donate $250, and the feds are alleging that Eric Adams received a whole bunch of these $250 donations. And by the way, if you're not very good at math, in order to get nearly $10 million of taxpayer money, that means that Eric Adams would have had to have gotten in small, under $250 donations, at least $1,250,000 in these illegal donations. So a system that was designed to reduce corruption, reduce reliance on big donors, actually, according to the indictment, created an incentive for Eric Adams to take all these different various straw donors. Now, to give you a specific from the indictment, it says, in November of 2018, businessman 1, the wealthy Turkish national who owned the Turkish University, a for-profit educational conglomerate in Turkey, and whom Adams met there in 2015, visited New York City. Adams and the Adams staffer met with businessman 1 at the Brooklyn Borough Hall. At the close of the meeting, businessman 1 offered to contribute funds to the 2021 campaign. This would be Mayor Eric Adams' first mayoral campaign. Although that Adams knew that businessman 1 was a Turkish national who could not lawfully contribute to elections, Adams directed the Adams staffer to obtain illegal contributions offered by businessman 1. Following up on this directive, Adams wrote to the staffer that businessman 1 is, quote, ready to help. I don't want his willing help to be wasted, close quote. As Adams directed, the Adams staffer maintained contact with businessman 1 through intermediaries, culminating in Adams accepting straw donations from businessman 1's money, discussed below.
After word came that he has been indicted by a federal grand jury in New York, Byron, this follows a 10-month investigation into corruption. It began with an investigation into the mayor's fundraising from his 2021 campaign and whether his campaign took illegal foreign money, particularly from Turkey, in exchange for official favors by Eric Adams. The investigation has more recently ballooned into a broader corruption inquiry involving some of his top deputy mayors and others in his inner circle.
Now look, you guys could say to yourselves, you know what, Sean, even though this obviously looks illegal, the fact of the matter is Mayor Eric Adams just wanted to be mayor of New York City so hard that he had to get the money in order to fight off the woke people that were running against him. And I can understand you guys out there in the audience thinking that this obvious criminality, if again true from the indictment, is somehow acceptable given all the different various people that were running for mayor against him. Again, Maya Wiley, the candidate endorsed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, was too woke for the de Blasio administration in order to run for mayor, and even if it took these Turkish contributions and Eric Adams going to jail, denying her that position probably still worth it, if I'm being perfectly honest. But the thing is, Eric Adams was not just taking this money for his campaign, he was not just scamming taxpayer dollars out of the public financing fund, he was also accepting bribes himself in the form of luxury travel benefits and other things. And by the way, one of the funniest parts about this, which we will get into later, is that one of Eric Adams' staffers actually thought that one of the bribes that was offered to him would be unethical.
Am I getting sick?
Eric Adams to take.
The guy who put my... They had a headlight change yesterday at O'Reilly's, and the guy who changed my bulbs sounded sick. I hope I didn't catch what he had. I blew my nose twice during this stream. I usually never have to blow my nose, not ever.
Inside their home. It's imperative that you should know what's inside your household. And no one can state that you can't search a room in your own home. You write the Constitution.
But we're going way too fast. We actually have to jump back in time in order to talk about these travel benefits to when Adams was the Brooklyn Borough president, and he established these corrupt relationships all the way back in 2015. And by the way, this pattern of behavior that he engaged in 2015 not only carries through to his current position as the mayor, but it actually shows that he knew that he was supposed to disclose certain things because he did back then, that he no longer discloses to the public now. In 2015, Eric Adams, the defendant, took 2 official trips to Turkey. His first trip was in August 2015, which was arranged by the Turkish Consulate General in New York City, which will be named as the Turkish Consulate, and paid for in part by the Turkish Consulate and in part by a for-profit educational conglomerate based in Istanbul.
Oh, this is awesome. This is definitely going in the intro.
Which, by the way, is the same person that set up all those straw donations for Adams later on. The second trip in December 2015 was arranged by a Turkish official and a Turkish entrepreneur that they called a promoter, whose business includes organizing events to introduce Turkish corporations and business people to politicians, celebrities, and others whose influence may benefit the corporations and business people. For both trips, Adams received free business class tickets on the Turkish Airlines.
I'm so happy he said that.
Subsequent travel with Turkish Airlines, however, Adams actually reported this 2015 travel on financial disclosure forms with the New York City Conflict of Interest Board, as he was required to do annually at all times relevant to this indictment. So I want to give you guys some context so you can understand exactly the level of luxury that Eric Adams was being offered, because you guys might hear business class and think of American business class, where you end up having just a bigger seat in the front of the plane, but there's not all that many special perks. Well, on Turkish Airlines, business class is the top class that they offer, so this would be more equivalent to their first class. And to show you a photo of when I flew business class on my honeymoon, which, by the way, I was able to get with credit card points, you see that the seat actually reclines to a full bed, there's better food, there's all these other different various perks, and a typical Turkish business class ticket costs about $10,000 and can go up to $15,000 depending on the travel season. So Eric Adams back then was given 2 round-trip business class tickets that could be valued anywhere combined between $20,000 and, of course, $30,000, and that's absolutely crazy. Now, to be clear, Adams went on this trip with him and his wife or partner. I'm not exactly sure if he's married at this moment in time because it's listed as partner. So we're talking about combined totals, but on this specific trip, he ended up bringing a staffer, and this is a staffer that later on would help manage and maintain the relationship with the Turkish government.
You can look at the jury box of this nature. Maybe a simple jury box, but if you look through it closely, you don't know what your child may be hiding. For instance, a gun could be hidden, a small caliber weapon could be hidden inside a jury box. Look at the various colognes and perfumes and photos and pictures. You should always, when your child brings in his popular knapsack with many different locations, look through it to see what exactly is your child carrying in addition to a book. Something simple as a crack pipe, a used crack pipe. Could he have found it on the street? That's quite possible. But this is a discussion piece where you should start speaking with him to find out what is he doing with it.
So we fast forward to 2016, and Adams starts accepting free luxury travel in secret. So after Eric Adams first traveled to Turkey in 2015, the Turkish official introduced Adams to Turkish Airlines general manager in New York City area, known as the airline manager, and in 2016 and in 2017, 2 times in 2016, once in 2017, Adams solicited and accepted free and heavily discounted luxury airfare from the Turkish airline as a part of the Turkish officials' effort to gain influence over Adams. On October 2016, he and his domestic partner, known as Adams' partner, traveled to India. Adams' partner purchased economy class tickets for herself and Adams from Turkish Airlines for approximately $2,286. 2 days before their flight was scheduled to depart, Adams accepted upgrades for himself and his partner by the Turkish airline to business class at no cost. The business class is the highest one offered by Turkish Airlines, which we went over, and had his partner purchased the business class tickets, they would have cost approximately $15,000 total. Now again, this is just one trip to India where he flew business class, and like I said, he was not upgraded based on the fact that he had enough points with Turkish Airlines or anything like that. He was upgraded based on the fact that they had this contact in Turkish Airlines, the company. In July and August of 2017, a close relative of Adams and member of Adams' staff who served as Adams' liaison to the Asian American communities of New York City, which is referred to as the Adams liaison, traveled to Nice, France, Istanbul, Turkey, Colombo, Sri Lanka, and Beijing, China. Adams accepted free business class tickets from the Turkish airline worth more than $35,000 total for himself and his companions. In October of 2017, Adams and the Adams liaison traveled to Nepal through Istanbul and Beijing. Adams accepted free business class tickets from the Turkish airline for himself and the Adams liaison for flights from New York to Istanbul and Istanbul to Beijing, and for the corresponding returning flights worth more than $16,000. So yeah, Adams, and it appears a relative of his, also used this travel to go to different various parts of the world, again business class, the top tier class at Turkish Airlines, and they accepted this for free, and none of this was disclosed on the required forms where Eric Adams is supposed to expose this information to the public in order to prevent the very corruption that's happening. Now, because Turkish Airlines provided free travel benefits worth tens of thousands of dollars, Eric Adams, the defendant, flew Turkish Airlines even when doing so was otherwise inconvenient. For example, during the July and August 2017 trip, Adams' partner was surprised that Adams was in Turkey when she understood him to be flying from New York to France. Adams responded, "Transferring here. You know the first stop is always Istanbul." When Adams' partner later inquired about planning a trip to Easter Island, Chile, Adams repeatedly asked her whether the Turkish airline could be used for their flights, requiring her to call the Turkish airline to confirm that they did not have an offer between New York and Chile. Listen, don't get me wrong. I saved up the credit card points in order to travel in a luxury way with the wife in the honeymoon, because it is definitely something that is nice. It's nice to be catered to on a plane. The lounges and all the perks and the food are great. But the idea that I would fly from New York to Istanbul just so I could go to Chile is crazy in every possible way. That is like some nuance bro level stuff. A guy who loves luxury flights so much that he will actually fly luxury to another country only to stay in the airport for 2 days so that he could then fly back to the United States of America just so he can post pictures on his Tinder profile in the luxury seats on the plane. That's how crazy that guy is. But Eric Adams is doing it not with credit card points. He's doing it on the backs of these Turkish businessmen. And again, this is an influence operation.
Behind a picture frame, you can find bullets. What does that mean to find bullets? Doesn't mean your child is carrying a gun, no. Where there's smoke, there's possible fire. Where there's a bullet, there's possibly a gun.
So not only, according to this indictment, did Eric Adams accept luxury flights from Turkish Airlines, from their business person who was trying to corrupt him, but he also accepted from businesswoman 1 stays at the St. Regis in Istanbul in the Bentley suite, which, by the way, partially or all of it was paid for by said businesswoman. Now, there are some crappy black and white photos of the Bentley suite in this particular segment, but let me be clear about something. Pretty nice, as you can see. Big room, extra room, look at that luxury bathroom. Obviously, it's very fancy. Now, Eric Adams, according to the indictment, paid just $600 in order to stay here during his travels, when the actual price of this, if you were to pay for it out of pocket, would be $7,000. Obviously, something sketchy going on right here, and again, this is another Turkish businesswoman that he met and that he ended up soliciting for illegal campaign contributions. If you guys are curious about whether or not Eric Adams knew that this was a corrupt thing to do. On top of that, on his forms, his disclosures, he did not report these as gifts. And by the way, the disclosure form asks you if you received any gifts over $1,000, and it also asks you if you've received any gifts over $50, and Adams filled out no and no for years years after the original trip back in 2015.
Look at all the items inside the room and feel around and see what's the possibility. Something simple as a baby doll. Could be just a baby doll, but also it could be a place where you can secrete or hide drugs.
Now this is where things get really funny, because Mayor Eric Adams also proves throughout the course of this indictment, again, if it proves to be true, to be an absolutely idiotic individual in every possible way. Because not only did Adams just report the wrong amount of money or have receipts for the wrong amount of money that he supposedly paid for these different various trips that don't line up anywhere with reality, but he also decided that he was going to create a fake paper trail for himself to show that he was reimbursing these benefits. But the thing is, Eric Adams is an actual idiot. Like, he's actually really, really dumb, and he thought emails to his assistant would be sufficient in order to create this paper trail in order to throw off the feds. And needless to say, that is not the case. This doesn't come off as remotely believable. And of course, it involves the Fonnie Willis defense of I just have all these cash around with me, and I use that cash to reimburse off the books anything that you guys say is corrupt. Eric Adams, the defendant, also sought to conceal luxury travel benefits he solicited and accepted from foreign nationals by creating fake paper trails which members of Adams' staff assisted in at his discretion. For example, Adams attempted to create a fake paper trail suggesting that he had paid for his 2017 flights on the Turkish airline, when in fact he had not. As Brooklyn Borough President, Adams employed a scheduler known as the Adams Scheduler, who managed his appointments, meetings, and other official events. Despite her status as a New York City employee, the Adams Scheduler was used by Adams to perform personal tasks for him, such as collecting rent at a Brooklyn
Alright.
property he
Oh, the
owned.
desktop audio is
Adams
not on at all.
also assigned the scheduler to pay various personal expenses for him, after which Adams would reimburse the scheduler in cash. So first of all, let's just point something out really quickly. Eric Adams, Democrat, one of these people that's got to protect women and all these different minority rights, has somebody that they call a scheduler, but in reality sounds more like a secretary, a female secretary, and not only does this person have official duties that they're supposed to engage in, that they're being paid for, but Eric Adams also assigned her a bunch of different other personal tasks, like collecting rent from tenants in buildings that he owned, and paying a bunch of different various personal expenses. And Adams would often reimburse this scheduler in cash in order to cover these different various expenses. Now, the paper trail that Adams is setting up right here is incredibly stupid. You'd have to be very low IQ to believe that this is real, but the fact is, Adams is hoping for very dumb people on the jury, I guess, that will actually buy into this, because it's absurd, and technically it worked for Fonnie Willis to just lie about all the different various times you paid all things with cash, so maybe, just maybe, in this particular circumstance, this will come off as believable, because remember, it's a black thing.
Run your hands over the pillows and see if you feel anything that's unusual. Like a pillow like this with a button is a perfect invitation to hide something. I felt something bumpy. I would reach in, see what it is. This one could be hidden inside a pillow.
Alright.
Maybe something that you'll think that can't be hidden there, but it can.
In 2017, Adams sent a series of emails to his scheduler directing the Adams Scheduler to pay for the free 2017 flights he and his companions had already taken on the Turkish airline. But the emails provided inconsistent explanations. In some, Adams suggested that Adams Scheduler should pay using Adams' credit card, while in others, Adams claimed to have left cash in an envelope for the Adams Scheduler to send to the Turkish airline. For example, on November 25th, 2017, Adams sent an email to the Adams Scheduler saying, with respect to the July trip, in quotes, meaning the July and August trip on Turkish Airlines, I left you money for the international airline in an envelope in your top desk drawer. Please send it to them. Given the cost of the international business class tickets for Adams alone, the email suggested that he had to leave a minimum of over $10,000 in cash in that drawer to send to the Turkish airline as payment for flights taken a month earlier. He did not do that, as records from the Turkish airline confirm that Adams did not pay the airline in cash or otherwise because the tickets were complimentary. Okay, so let's break down how stupid this is. So Adams says he has his assistant cover his personal expenses, and many a time when the expense is real, Eric Adams will have them use the credit card in order to cover that. However, sometimes when the expense is not real, like paying back complimentary tickets that Eric Adams had no intention of paying back, he would claim that there's an envelope full of cash in the drawer that you should use in order to pay those expenses. And I will just point out that paying Turkish Airlines in cash when this person has your credit card and debit card information and can do an electronic transaction that would create a real paper trail is the most inconvenient thing that you could possibly do. Now again, Eric Adams is going to say that this is a black thing, but let's be real, this is nonsense.
Oh, God.
If you believe this, you're an idiot. The idea that Eric Adams thought he wouldn't get caught shows a level of entitlement that's absolutely embarrassing. And again, he's playing the race card because that's the go-to move for these Democrats. Hide behind identity.
We have a brand. New York has a brand. And when people see it, it means something. You know, when we go there, it's not, Kansas doesn't have a brand. You know? Oh, when you go there, okay, you're from Kansas. You know, well, you know what? But New York has a brand.
Now look, as I'm making this video, I realize that there is no way I'm going to have the time to go through all of this, so I'm going to go over the thing where Eric Adams' own staffer was shocked at his corruption, and I'm also going to talk about another ridiculously stupid lie that if you guys thought the previous lie about the cash in the envelope in the drawer in order to reimburse Turkish Airlines for a complimentary ticket was dumb, you will be blown away with how dumb Eric Adams actually is in this other lie that he told to the FBI.
Just look and see what's inside your bookcases. It could be more than just books. Perfect place to hide cocaine or other illegal substances.
So on June 22nd, 2018, the same day as a fundraising event that was described earlier in the indictment, the Adams staffer and promoter discussed by text message a possible trip by Adams to Turkey. The promoter stated in part, "Fundraising is not illegal in Turkey, but I think I can raise money for your campaign off the record." The Adams staffer inquired, "How will you declare that money here?" The promoter responded, "He won't declare it or will make a donation through an American citizen, a Turk, and I'll give cash to him or send it to an American. He will make the donation to you." Adams staffer replied to this, quote, "I think he wouldn't get involved in such games. They might make a big stink of that later on, but I'll ask anyways." The Adams staffer asked, "How much do you think would come from you?" And the promoter responded, "Maximum 100K. The Adams staffer wrote, 100K? Do you have a chance to transfer that here? We can't do that while Eric is in Turkey." To which the promoter replied, "Let me think." After this conversation, the Adams staffer asked Adams whether or not the staffer should pursue this unlawful foreign contribution offered by the promoter, and contrary to the Adams staffer's expectations, Adams directed the staffer to pursue the promoter's illegal scheme. So Adams is so corrupt that somebody involved in his corruption and covering it up was shocked at the levels, the depths that he would go to, according to this indictment. But again, that's not even the best part about this. There's so many good things, so much entertainment, but I have one final treasure for you guys because it's absolutely amazing.
You know, welcome to our trash revolution, and no one does it better.
So one of the things that to me is clear throughout the course of this indictment is that Eric Adams, his team, the Turks, all these people, among the crimes that they are charged with, likely could easily be charged with obstructing justice, and all these different various ways that they did so, destroyed evidence, and all these other things are laid out.
Why?
But you need to understand that Adams is actually not charged with
What the
this
fuck is going
as of
on
right
here?
now, even though it seems like you could make the case that he easily could be. Eric Adams, the defendant, and his co-conspirators and agents continued their efforts to
Zoom out,
pursue
motherfucker.
their criminal conduct after the federal
What the
investigation
fuck?
into those crimes became known to them. On November 2nd, 2023, special agents for the Federal Bureau of Investigation,
That's really
the
fucking
FBI,
weird.
executed search warrants at, among other locations,
Alright,
the
the
residences
program is
of
tweaking
Adams
the fuck
fundraiser,
out.
Businessman 5, and the Adams staffer. Each took actions to conceal criminal conduct. After learning that the FBI agents had arrived at her residence, but before answering the door to the repeated knock by the feds, the Adams fundraiser called Adams 5 times, even though the agents had not yet given the Adams fundraiser any indication of the purpose of their visit. When the Adams fundraiser then spoke with the FBI agents, she agreed to discuss many subjects, but refused to say who had paid for her 2021 travel to Turkey. As the FBI agents departed the Adams fundraiser residence, Adams attempted to call the Adams fundraiser on the phone. On the morning that the FBI executed this search, Adams had flown to Washington, D.C. for a publicized official meeting, but upon learning about the search, Adams canceled the meeting and immediately returned to New York City. Businessman 5, who agreed to speak with the FBI agents, acknowledged that he and his employees had contributed to the 2021 campaign. Businessman 5 further acknowledged that he had spoken with the Turkish official about the construction company's fundraiser for the 2021 campaign. But Businessman 5 lied in order to conceal the straw donations that he orchestrated, falsely denying that he caused the construction company to reimburse his employees for their contributions.
All right.
And that he knew why the company had issued identical checks to the 10
Finish this tomorrow night.
for the amount of their contributions.
I'm just so burnt out from editing.
The Adams staffer who agreed to speak with FBI agents falsely
It's really hard to throw myself into this one, but I'm getting it done. I'm moving slightly behind the... Moving a little behind schedule. Everything was supposed to be done earlier. I don't know. Pete says it's cool. We're hoping to post this on Monday. It'll definitely be done by Monday. I'll be back. Oh, it's 3:30 in the morning already? Alright, yeah, I'll probably be back with another stream. No one came to watch.